Chapter 10. The brothers, Paul and Barry Geronimo, sat in the police cell, handcuffed together. A more disconsolate pair of renegades it was hard to imagine. With his unmanacled hand, Paul nursed the Victoria plum which had ripened upon his left temple. Barry made dismal groaning sounds as he tested his many tender spots for signs of fracture. At great length, it was he who was the first to speak.
"Mummy's not going to like this,"
he said simply. Paul made as if to effect a surly frown, which caused him considerable pain.
"We're going on the warpath for certain,"
he muttered.
"Many scalps will be taken before tea time."
Barry glanced sidelong at his bandaged brother.
"Paul,"
he said.
"Paul, you are really quite certain about us being the dual reincarnation of Geronimo, aren't you? I mean, there couldn't be any mistake now, could there? I reckon we're on our hiding to nowhere here. I mean..."
For his outspokenness, Brother Barry received a blow much favoured by the now legendary Billy Two Rivers and known as the Tomahawk Chop.
"You swine, I'm telling Mum." "Break it up in there,"
a Metropolitan Police voice called through the peephole.
"And get on your feet, you've got a visitor."
A heavy key turned in the lock, making all those really good noises that jail door locks make in prison movies. The door swung in to reveal the grinning Constable Meek, bearing 3 teacups and a plate of digestives on a regulation enamel tray.
"Here you go, Tonto," he smirked. "Sorry, we're out of firewater." "Half hour on Red Ant's Nest, we've only put up back passage wipes all of your face,"
said Paul Geronimo, making an obscene North American gesture. Barry rubbed at the new bruise on his head. There had to be something to this reincarnation business. Civil engineers just did not come out with off-the-cuff remarks like that.
2 sugars, please," he said.
"You've got a visitor," said the still smirking constable, placing the tray upon the bunk.
"Great White Chief, come smoke a pipe of peace."
"That will be enough of that, thank you, Constable."
The voice belonged to Inspector Horvis, who now followed it into the cell. He carried beneath his arm a buff-coloured folder.
"Kindly relock the door behind you, Constable, and await my call."
Constable Meek slunk away, slamming the door dramatically behind him.
"Now,"
said the inspector, taking a digestive from the plate and seating himself,
"would you like me to tell you all about it?"
Paul Geronimo looked Horvis up and down.
"Under Articles of Geneva Convention, we will tell you nothing but name, rank and telephone number," he said. "So go, Sling Hook."
"I see," said Horvis. "Then let me tell you something. This is my first day in Brentford."
"Careful it not your last,"
said Paul.
"My first day,"
Horvis continued. He delved into his pocket and drew out a small, brightly coloured book.
"Do you see this?"
Paul nodded.
"It's the famous guide to Brentford, written by esteemed local author P.P. Penrose, author of the Laszlo Woodbine thrillers,"
Barry added.
"Quite so," said Horvis. "I purchased it this very morning."
Paul studied the ceiling and made wardrum sounds beneath his breath.
"It is my belief," said Horvis, "that a guidebook tells you as much about a town as what it does not say as by what it does say."
"A esoteric dichotomy alone an insufficient basis for theoretical reasoning," said Paul. "Brave who always search skyline for enemy smoke oftentimes walked in buffalo poo."
"Be that as it may," said Horvis, "then I shall confine my observations to what the guidebook does say."
He thumbed it open and, between munchings of his biscuit, read aloud.
"The historic borough of Brentford is notable for, amongst other things, the beauty of its womenfolk, the glories of its architectural heritage, and the quality of its fine hand-drawn ales. In the year 49 A.D., Julius Caesar..."
"Beg to interject," said Paul, "but notable history of borough well known to us. We were born and raised here."
"All right," said the inspector. "Then, to be succinct, it is this. In 1,000 years of recorded history, Brentford has never known a race riot. Not until today, when you incited one."
"We done what?"
queried Barry.
"Incited a race riot."
Inspector Horvis took a signed statement from his file and glanced it up and down.
Did you or did you not refer to Councillor Clyde Merridew Fogg as mangy white cur fit only for roasting over a slow fire?
Well,
said Paul, and a Mr. Julian Membrane, who is recovering, I am pleased to say, from the tomahawk wound, records in his statement that you made the inflammatory remark, "Yellow blood of palefaces belong painted on toilet walls."
We're true victims of racial harassment,
cried Paul Geronimo, rising from his bunk and dragging his brother with him.
Long-nosed white dog twist truth like sweet twist.
There you go again, said Horvis. This is not going to look very good on my report now, is it? Inflammatory remarks of a racial nature, damage to council property, disturbing the peace, inciting riot, grievous bodily harm, assault with a deadly weapon, resisting arrest, insulting behaviour. Need I go on? You'll get 5 years for this lot, I shouldn't wonder.
He gestured towards Paul's blackly dyed and magnificently braided barnet and made scissor snips with his fingers.
At Her Majesty's barber shop.
Paul fingered his hair. It had taken 3 years to grow. Brother Barry's greyish chin sank onto his buckskin chest.
"Way up Shark Creek in Bubway Canoe," he observed.
"How aptly put," said Inspector Horvis. "Now, what do you suppose we should do about it?"
Paul peered dubiously towards the gaunt vulture hovering upon the opposite bunk.
"What exactly are you suggesting?"
he asked. Horvis folded his mirrored pince-nez into an elegant tortoise-shell case and slid this into his top pocket. He reached forward for another biscuit and fixed Paul Geronimo with a penetrating gaze. The brave wilted visibly.
"Well," said Inspector Horvis.
"Oh," said Paul Geronimo.
"Score who dances too long around the cooking pot, praising cook, find that meal grown too cold to eat, if you get my meaning."
"I do,"
said Paul.
I think I do."
"Well, what say we smoke pipe with peas and parley, just a little?"
"I can dig it," said Paul Geronimo. 45 minutes later, the final cell door having closed upon his departure, Inspector Horvis strode into the newly painted office that was now his own, placed his bum upon the chair and his heels upon the desk. All in all, it had been a most satisfactory day. By skillful manipulation, he now had half the town council virtually in his pocket, he had spared the borough the embarrassment their prosecution would have brought upon it, and himself the ensuing notoriety for having arrested them in the first place. He had become blood brother to the dual reincarnation of Geronimo, and had been invited out to dinner by one of the most attractive women it had ever been his privilege to interrogate. All in all, it had been a most satisfactory first day. Reaching for his cane, Horvis flipped open the silver top and withdrew a pinch of ground black Moroccan snuff. He offered this to an eager nostril and drew deeply upon it, but there was little time for self-congratulation. He was here upon a mission, one upon which the fate of his entire career could be said to rest. Like Dick Whittington and the Count of St. Germain, Inspector Horvis had come to Brentford with only one thought in his mind: the search for gold.